Let's continue the French Revolution. Let's start with the Society of Revolutionary Republican Women. A famous women's club was the Society of Revolutionary Republican Women. This club demanded that women be given the same political rights as men. Women still now had no rights to vote. Women's participation in the revolution. Women were active participants in the French Revolution. Women in France were not empowered. Most of the women of the third estates had to work to earn their livelihood. They worked as seamstresses, sold flowers and vegetables, or worked as domestic servants in the houses of wealthy family. So, women started their own club in order to raise their own voices. Yes, from the very beginning, women were active participants in the events which brought about so many important changes in the French society. They hoped their involvement could pressurize the revolutionary government to introduce measures to improve their lives. And most of the women of the third estates had to work for a living. They worked as seamstresses, sold flour and vegetables, and even they worked as domestic servants in the house of wealthy family. And most of the women did not have access to education or any job training. Only the daughters of the nobles and the wealthier member of the third estates, yes, could study at a convent, after which their families arranged a marriage for them. Working women had also to care of their family, yes, that is to cook, to fetch water, etc. Their wages were very lower than those of men. Yes, so in order to discuss and voices their interest, women started their own political club and newspaper. Yes, and about 60 women clubs came out in different French cities. In that, they were discussed about few things. In the earlier years, the revolutionary government did introduce laws that helped improve the lives of women. Together with the creation of the state schools and schooling was made compulsory for all girls. Even their father could no longer force them into marriage against their will. And marriage was made in a contract entered into a freely and registered under civil law. Divorce was made legal and could be applied for both women as well as men. Women could now train for job and could become artists or run a small business. So, women's movement for voting rights and equal wages continued through the next 200 years in many countries of the world. The fight for the vote was carried out through an international suffrage movement during the late 19th and earlier 20th century, and at the last, it was finally in 1946 the women in France won the right to vote. Abolition of slavery. One of the important reforms of the Jacobin Club was the abolition of slavery in the French colonies. Slaves were brought from Africa by the European, and what they will be doing it and where they sold to plantation owners for sugar, coffee and indigo for the European markets were met. The system of slavery was hardly criticized in France. After being banned by the Jacobins, slavery was again reintroduced by Napoleon Bonaparte. Conclusion. In 1804, Napoleon Bonaparte crowned himself Emperor of France. He introduced many laws such as the protection of private property and a uniform system of weights and measures provided by the decimal symbol. Initially, many laws Napoleon as a liberator who could bring freedom for the people. He was finally defeated at Waterloo in 1815. Many of these measures that carried the revolutionary ideas of liberty and modern laws to other parts of Europe had an impact on people long after Napoleon had left. The ideas of liberty and domestic rights were the most important legacy of the French Revolution. This spread from France to the rest of Europe during 19th century were feudal system. So, at the last we have discussed about women's participation. Yes, and at the last we have discussed about did women have a revolution, and women have participated in so many things, and Abolition of Slavery, the Revolution and Everyday Life. Thank you, students.